and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I am your host for today, Maria Roa, and I am happy to introduce you to Caley Burton. With a strong background in content strategy and user experience and over 9 years of technical communications experience, Caley has successfully transformed complex documentation challenges into scalable, AI ready solutions. Their expertise is forming effective content strategy teams and conducting usability tests has significantly improved customer experiences. Kaylee is based in Austin, Texas, and is known for their innovative approach to content management and their dedication to enhancing user satisfaction. Right now, Kaylee is leading an incredible and innovative PCX team at Cloudflare as their senior technical writing manager. Kaylee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we are too to have you here. So let's dive deeper into the world of content, which I absolutely love and adore. And I want to explain a little bit more to our audience because while many people think of content only as blogs, ebooks, social media posts, I feel that a comprehensive content strategy involves so much more, So can you explain to our audience what a holistic content strategy entails and what key elements need to be considered when developing a 360-degree content plan?
Yeah, for sure. So, at its core, it's an integrated campaign where your message is strategically shared across multiple customer touchpoints. So, in addition to like social media, you're thinking about your website, the marketing material on it, but also like your developer documentation, your email strategy about informing customers that are already signed up, like, hey, here's another cool feature or a new product launching, potentially even, being ready to release things at a conference. So it's all those touch points, where your customers are and how you're reaching out to them. But then like the goal of that is to tell a consistent and compelling story that draws people in, so whether that's to learn more or to try your product or, become a long-term user by, giving them a little bit more and a little bit more to continue to use and solve their problems with. So but it doesn't just stop there. The story has to be backed up by an excellent product experience. So it's holistic. So essentially, it's a weird way to talk about it, but your product is part of your content strategy. And then the goal is to it's a team sport. So your go-to-market teams, your product managers, your engineers, your tech writers, we're all coming together. And we have to align on the timeline. We have to define the audience and the channels. We have to refine the message, and then actually produce the right content to support all of that. So basically, it's basically all of that content. It could be again blogs, webinars, technical guides, live demos, delivered in sync for a product launch or a key service offering. And the magic of like a 360 plan is, how it all works together to deliver one strong, memorable message, and to do that, you need to ensure that you have the right customer and audience insights, that you're adhering to messaging pillars, defining that content goal or goals that you might have, and then, creating a good distribution plan. Like, are you trying to hit all of the touch points? Are there specific ones that you want to really target, and then make sure you're connecting them all together? And then that's the real test is, bringing it to life everywhere that it makes sense and to keep it consistent, scalable, and impactful. So when I think about it from mostly the technical documentation standpoint, which is where I'm normally situated, the docs are often the first place that the users go after discovering or buying a product. So especially if that product is pretty complex or really developer focused or has a really strong self-service motion. So that means your documentation isn't just supporting content or support content. It's also, experience content. So it directly impacts adoption, satisfaction, and trust. So your docs are usually where your core message really becomes a reality outside of the actual product or outside of like the website. So it needs to match what you're claiming, and it needs to be really accurate and clear and connective. So for example, more and more deliverables are being produced, say like video tutorials and such, like hopefully if somebody is interacting with your documentation, there's also maybe a touch point to lead them to a video tutorial if they want to complete a process or a task, or to even like poke around in a new product that they're not completely familiar with, but they could see it as an opportunity to um, continue solving their problems with your platform. So that kind of thing. So, essentially the documentation is where the customers will, really need that user-oriented process and workflows to help them get started and to really guide them through the process. So, like I said, it's the connective tissue. The whole content strategy and plan is the connective tissue, but the documentation is really there for the customers to keep going and learning.
Yeah, and I love what you said about like all the teams working together, because at the end also you think that communication, some people might think it is the end process, but it is actually the beginning of the process of the clients to know your product. And also
Yes,
it might be the beginning of the journey to working with you. So you never know, they might need something else after that. So that documentation, it's just the beginning of that customer to start working with you. It's also the beginning of that relationship with your company. So it's for
yes,
you, I feel is the perfect time for you to, I mean, or for your team to talk to the sales team, like how can we engage the customer now that they know this product? Is there something else that they might need? How can we lead them here? So that connection that you were talking about, like the teams, is
yes,
is something that you need to know whenever you're creating these documents. Are
for
they
sure.
going to need something else? How can we lead them? How can we let them know that we can help them you know in some other ways? Sorry, it's just coming to my head, but that connection that you're talking between teams, it happens all the time with me and events, because it's the same way. Whenever I tell them about an event, I also need to think like, is there anything else that we can tell them? Is there anything else they need to know? All these linking parts, between departments.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would even say, like, as an example, a real life example is like integration guides. That onboarding experience for a customer to, like, say they're working with something really complex and they're having to change a lot of configuration and they're having to jump from one thing to another to another. If your company is not setting them up for success and you're doing like a very generic doc set
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like high level information for them, they're likely going to be calling your support teams and they're likely going to be like, I need hand holding through this, right? So if your doc team were to work with the support team and be like, tell me what you normally
Correct.
experience. And what are your top support issues with the onboarding experience? How can we ensure that we've documented something that at least mitigates as many calls? It might not block all calls from going to the customers, right? Or deflect all calls going to the customer support team, but it likely will help reduce those calls. And it will then also enable those customers to trust you more. Like you have thought out what their experience is going to be like starting to integrate with your platform and deploying to like your service and stuff like that. So it's really important that you are thinking about like not just out of the box, everything's completely fresh and new. They're not going to have to change anything. It's like a lot of customers are likely going to have to change the way that they do
Mm-hmm.
things or how they're set up. So talking to your support teams to ensure that you are anticipating what the customers are going to be facing versus just assuming.
100%. Okay, well, then once you've developed this 360-degree content strategy, what are the key steps and best practices for effectively implementing and managing this strategy across different channels and teams?
Yeah, yeah. So once you've set up that 360, degree content plan, I think the real magic happens with how you implement it. So it comes down to the people and the process, right? So you have to have the right people, and you have to have, an understandable plan and process in place for people to navigate through it successfully. So, the first step is making sure everybody involved actually knows the strategy. I know that kind of seems like a no duh situation, but not everybody is going to be speaking the same language or understand this like the customer as well as you, or come at it from the same perspective or background. So that means you have to really explain what it is. What is the strategy? Who are you who are you targeting? Why are you targeting them? And how them in their role could be supporting it. So, that means getting cross-functional teams, from marketing, product, support, sales, all aligned on what the content is meant to do, who is it for and how it shows up across the channels. So, a well-run like kickoff meeting or a series of like team specific walkthroughs goes a really long way here. So don't just share a doc and throw it over the fence and say you've been informed. It's more so of a like collaboration of, okay, what questions do you have? Does that make sense? Are we missing anything here? And so that's key. So getting people in a room, getting people talking to each other, getting people collaborating and gut checking things and saying, do we have data here to support that? Or is this something new? Can we set up a plan to check in on it and make sure it's working? And having those metrics in place of what success looks like. And then, from there, it's where the process becomes your best friend. So, you need a clear system of like how the content moves from an idea to the execution state and you're delivering it. And then you're measuring it and all that kind of stuff. So that includes, building editorial calendars, assigning owners, setting deadlines, defining a review and approval process of, it's ready, let's get it going. And if it's unclear of like who does that, it's going to slow the process of content creation down. And, it could, be off brand and confuse customers about like, what am I supposed to be doing with this product and why should I care? So it really helps to identify like content champions on each team. It's important to, give those people the tools and awareness of like what the strategy is so they can, inform their teams because you can't be everywhere at once. And then they could also help say, hey, that's not actually in alignment with what we're trying to do here, or that's not aligning with what we're wanting to tell customers in this situation or how to move them through the process here. And then, on the back end, the tools really help too. Like they're going to be helping people kind of understand what's next. So, the tools shouldn't be like you have to follow the process because that is the process. The goal should be to enable communication and collaboration, not add a ton of additional complex things on top of it. So to me, the process, the leaner it is, the likely the better it is. So, because you don't want to spend too much time on process. But regardless, whether you're using like a content calendar and a slide deck or, you're drafting in Google Docs or, you're using workflows at say Jira or Azure DevOps, what have you, like the process should be really transparent and easy to follow. Like it shouldn't be causing people to have too much mental load and ask too many questions about what the heck is this thing even, right? It should just be able to work really well so they could be putting their time and energy to the content as opposed to the process itself. And finally, like the implementation, like great implementation means really staying connected. So, again, coming back to that, your people have to be communicating. So setting up regular syncs, making sure content reviews are something that people are prioritizing and making time for, and then also having retrospectives, whether that is leading up to the launch and asking each other, like, how can we make this better? How can we improve the process for ourselves, as well as post-launch or post-go live retros and asking each other, like, again, how is this performing? Are we surprised by it? Does the data make sense? Do we need to ask for feedback elsewhere? And then also, how can we improve the content over time? What's landing, what's not landing, that kind of stuff. So in short, it's, a successful rollout isn't about pushing content out everywhere. Honestly, it comes down to, building that shared understanding, creating that clear ownership for people to operate within and know what their role is, and then also deploying a simple and repeatable system for people to easily pick up and run with, and then also know to come back together and say, is this what we meant? Is this the thing that we wanted to deliver? And are we cool with this? Are we happy with this? I mean, that's when it's going to be a really good and impactful collaboration and likely launch and campaign. So, yeah.
Well, that looks like a perfect plan of implementation. So I guess you never had a challenge, but let me ask, just in case, with that perfect plan of implementation, did you ever have a challenge? And if you did, how did you overcome it? But I mean, like you just said, everything looks like everything goes perfect every time you
No.
implement. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the ideal happy path where it should
Okay.
just work, right? It should just work.
Yes, yes, you said it. You said it like
No.
everything, it's happy, W, you just like go and everything works perfectly. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I
Mm.
think the classic bumps in the
That's
road.
what we try with all our calendars, all our information, emails. I feel the same,
Mhm.
like I always put like my bullet points and this is what it should be. I send my calendar and then,
Yep. Yep. I mean, I think the number one thing is always going to be, misalignment across teams or even across the people who are representing your teams. Like, let's be real, each function is going to have a different goal. So marketing is going to be chasing leads. Product wants users to adopt the new features and to stay engaged, right, within their product. And then, support is trying to reduce ticket volume. They are hoping that customers can be really self-served, right? So content sits at this intersection and everybody wants, documentation to support them, and very valid because hopefully the documentation can, make up for maybe a not super intuitive UI or to, prevent those calls from coming in because they are capturing the nuance or the complexity. But as a result, it's, you have to be able to deal with conflict of priorities as a result. We have to build an understanding of like what are the goals that we're really trying to achieve here. And to do that, you have to communicate early and often, and you have to repeat yourself. And that repeating yourself is actually okay. It shouldn't be viewed as this as the a necessary evil. It's like if you're communicating with people, you're helping them to understand things a lot more. And if they understand things, again, they can be those like content champions who then go on and help other people understand like this is the goal here. Like, yes, we have our very specific goals, but this is the goal for the company. This is the goal for the customer in general. So yeah, it's like it's surfacing the needs and the friction points and the misunderstandings in these meetings, especially to kick off, and then hopefully in regular syncs to just kind of like show people like, hey, ask your questions, push back on things, but ultimately we have to align on, what we're doing here. And we have to make sure that we are moving forward too, and not just getting stuck in analysis paralysis because then we're not going to be producing much. So I think my pro tip there is to make sure you have a D or a decision maker who ultimately says this is the way that we go. And hopefully they are data driven and data informed that allows them to make the best decision for the company and the customer in that situation. Um, Another thing is, I think I kind of touched on this, is like too many priorities, not enough people. So that's a situation where you're going to have to really make it clear to people that you're not just saying yes to everything. Because if you're saying yes to everything, you're not going to be producing the best, tightest content for the customer. Like you're going to be genericizing things too much, or you're going to be
yes.
producing something that is just like incomplete, unhelpful, or just like all over the place. So being able to really say, what is the ROI on this? How is this a positive for the business and how is this a positive for the customer? Like who is that user that we are going after that we need to make sure we're really documenting this thing for, or producing this video for, or engaging them in this webinar space. Like we have to make sure that we're being very, very um, aggressive is the wrong word, smart. We have to be really aware of like what our
Top,
uh,
top priority.
yes, yeah, exactly. So, it's not necessarily no forever. It could be no, not yet. Let's get a little
Yeah.
bit more data here. Let's make sure that this is actually landing. This feels more like an add-on versus an actual like thing that we want to be leading with. So yeah, you have to be aware of the business impact, the value for the user, and the effort it's going to take the content team as well, or whoever's producing that deliverable at that time. So it's got to move the needle, and add it to the backlog so you don't forget about it, especially if it's something that feels really promising. And we can continue to talk about it. So yeah, kind of being, I keep saying like aggressive, ambitious with your priorities, but that it's not, it sounds too like hard and
No,
resistant.
but I
It's
completely understand you because also your priorities can change. I mean, one day can be one, the next day can be another one. So
yeah,
it depends. It
yes,
also depends
yes,
who you talk to on the team, like you were saying before. Is it
yes.
marketing? Is it?
Yeah. And I would even say like this kind of ties into I think the final bit that I want to highlight in terms of issues or hiccups and stuff. I think being able to really articulate the value of the content that you're producing. It's really easy to say, well, I'm not seeing the metric, I'm not seeing the return of those metrics that you said that you would, be able to show. And I think that's because content is really, it's more of a lagging, like most of the metrics are going to be lagging. Like you're going to have to wait for people to actually visit, and then you're going to have to see what they're doing over time. Are they staying on that page? Are they backing out? Are they going to another piece of content that your company has created, and so on and so forth. And it's on the flip side, it's also really difficult to isolate. Did the documentation make the difference here? Because nobody's really stopping and trying to tease that out. That's really hard for ROI for, say, UX research or anybody that's watching, Google Analytics or the SEO of their website and everything like that. That's really hard to tease out at times. Like, what exactly about this topic convinced somebody to buy this product, right?
Metrics in content for me, it's one of the hardest thing. I mean, every time they ask for it, or at least to us in marketing, whenever for me it's really complicated because there are so many variables that are affecting that content. It might even be the time of the day that that was sent, the day that
Yeah.
it was sent. Whenever we're talking in a global in a global, yeah, because we're a global company, so what are you talking about? I mean, was it when it was open in the States, whenever it was open in Europe? I
Yeah.
mean, like, who do we wanted it to open? I mean, are we talking about a global content result? Because it depends. Whenever it was sent, it was a good time in Europe. It wasn't
Yeah.
such a great time in the US. We needed to be sent at different times. Also, maybe it wasn't as good in Spain because at that time it was an Easter celebration in Spain because it was
Yeah.
Thursday, but it wasn't an Easter celebration anywhere else that it was in a Catholic country. I mean, like, there's so many variables. I mean, and I'm just
Mhm.
saying just a few, but so many variables that can
Yes.
affect, and I'm talking about in emailing, but it can be anything content wise. It might be a topic that is more of interest in the Nordic countries, but not somewhere
Hmm.
else. I mean, anything. It's really complicated to get metrics out of content or to
Yeah.
let you know that something has been more interesting. You can get something, but it's really complicated. Very complicated.
Yes. And that's why, especially the content team or the documentation team really need to make support and sales their best buddies, and product, obviously, their best buddies. Because hopefully, if there is telemetry in the product, maybe you could be tracking a customer's journey from using the software, and maybe they get to a point where they are like, oh, indecision. I don't know what to do next. What are they clicking on? Are they clicking on context help? Are they clicking on and launching the topic? And then are they successful when they come back? Like, that's complicated, but hopefully it's something that you can potentially track, especially if it's a workflow or a feature that the product is really investing in and wanting to be successful. So yeah, that's just one option.
Yeah, it's complicated. I completely understand you. I mean, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Getting data on content, it's something complicated when you're talking about a global content. But anyways,
yeah, yeah.
so let's change matters because that would drive us crazy. Okay, content strategy. Let's go to that. Content strategy is also something that has evolved over the years, especially in response to customer feedback. How have you done this? I mean, can you share how have you mm, done? How have you done the approach to content strategy over the years? How have you changed it?
I think one thing that's really coming to mind right now is a lot of customers are asking for those videos, video tutorials. They're asking even more for examples and application examples or API examples, things of that nature. Like instead of just being alerted that a product exists, customers are wanting to know, how do I use this? Like pretty much from the jump, like even before they buy the thing, they want to see a visual representation of what it looks like to be successful, as well as how easy is this thing to use. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask, is it QR something that was huge a few years ago and not really used anymore? Is it QR
Oh,
that
the
takes you
QR
to a video?
code.
Yeah, it's something that it's still in use because I feel like it's not that much anymore, but it was
Like,
huge a few years ago. Like everything was with a QR, and you
yeah,
needed to have like the app open all the time to check. Even in a web, there you would find a QR.
yeah. That is something that has really become I have not seen much success with it, especially if like a customer is unboxing something that's physical, for example. Um, and they are likely not going to want to use their phone to access documentation or access the thing that's supposed to get them started. If they're unboxing, they're likely going to either want to see like something that's paper that's just going to give them simple instructions for setup, or they're going to want to likely open it up on their desktop. So it's not the best method of bridging that I think the QR code solves in this situation. Now, if it's a product that is more oriented towards an app or towards, mobile usage, I could totally see why that is something that people want to push. But especially when people are actually like unboxing a physical
Mhm.
device, or if they're using something that is like a web app or something more oriented towards the internet or software, they're not really needing a QR code to get them there. Like as much as they're just using a QR code potentially to authenticate or do
Yeah, it's
something in
weird.
terms. Yeah, so you have to really think about that customer journey. Like what are you wanting their out like unboxing experience to look like, or what are you wanting their like onboarding experience to look like? You probably don't want them to use multiple devices in that situation. um so yeah, I agree with you. I think QR codes were something that it
The
makes sense
past.
in. Yeah, it makes sense in very specific use cases, but not probably as much as people assume. So yeah.
Okay, so videos, it's the future. Well, it's what we're using now. We don't know the future.
I think people want to see, we are very much a visual species. Yes, we can read and everything like that, but I think time has really made us like impatient. We want to see the thing in action, and we want to see to believe in many ways. So I think if what I've noticed is if you can launch with a video, a tutorial, especially where it's like, here's your getting started experience. And for example, if you have a free product or a free tier of products where it's like, it's really simple to just like create an account and get going and moving through it, like that is going to help customers to kind of quickly believe that you mean what you say you mean in terms of easiness and getting started. Like that's a great experience for them to try it out themselves. Can I do the thing that they say that I can do here?
And in order to create this content, I'm curious because we work in localization.
Mhm.
How do you do it? Do you create user personas and their journeys, and like do you take into consideration localization in order to tailor the content? Like for instance, in a video, would you take into consideration using different people, different languages, and the same thing with languages, or do you do everything in English? How do you do it?
I might because I just started Cloudflare, I haven't done a deep dive into are we localizing every video at this point. But for what I've gathered, we are not localizing every video. But so how do we create that, right? It's we are doing user personas and customer journeys. And that is really essential to being able to, create meaningful content, especially product documentation that's going to be supporting the
Hmm.
video content. But yeah, you want to stop writing for the product and you want to start writing for the people that are going to be using your product. So understanding exactly like, okay, what is their starting position here? Like, who's our target persona here in the sense of like, how familiar are they with our products? How familiar are they with, the internet or networking? How familiar are they, if you are more of a developer oriented product, like are they an expert and do they just want to get quickly started with APIs and show them some API examples of like what kind of applications they could be building, or giving them kind of like a little bit, or are we just giving them the API reference? I
Hmm.
think with video tutorials, you're likely working with people that are like on the newer side. They might not know anything, they might just be fresh into this idea of, oh, I could do this thing, I could set up this application use case really easily. Cool, because I want to be able to do this on my own. So I'm going to watch this video and just like really go through it step by step, guiding them, giving them a little bit of success as they proceed until they finally reach that conclusion of like, oh wow, I have my website set up all of a sudden. And that took 5 minutes because I made a few commands in the command line, and um, here I am. And I've connected my GitHub to my Cloudflare account, and I've been able to use this integration to quickly deploy. It's one of those situations where by giving customers this like hand-holding experience without actually giving them a person that's hand-holding them, it's more of like you had this videographer, this video production manager create this video, like one time, maybe over the course of like 2 weeks, with all the editing and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And here they are helping thousands of people do this thing over and over again. And now you have thousands of people who've signed up and deployed using your product, and they are now looking at what else can I do with this platform, and what else can I, and they're looking at the documentation, they're looking at other video tutorials, and they just keep moving forward with it. So I think that is something that is awesome because it just builds that trust that they can rely on you pretty quickly and that your product is relatively easy to use. Um, and I'm not going to say that video is the way all the time because it does require a lot of upkeep and it does require a lot of maintenance. And if you are going to change the UI, are you changing it in a way where somebody's going to have to go back in and splice the video and add additional step? And, where's that falling on their priority list or their backlog, right? So it's just like any other form of content, you gotta keep up the maintenance of it and stay aware of what's changing in the product. And again, that comes back to that content strategy team or content council, keeping each other in the loop, keeping each other aware of like what's going on and what the focus is and what the goals are here.
Whoa, oh my God. I think we're going over, but I can't finish this conversation without asking you about AI.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. That's the topic. So, how do you see AI impacting the future of content management and strategy? And is there any specific AI tools or techniques that you find
No, you're good. It's a hard word even for the English
it is.
speakers.
I'm sorry, particularly promising. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're
My
good. I
bad.
have trouble with that one every day too. No worries. I think AI is one of those tools that is definitely going to help us reduce the amount of heavy, intense manual work and effort. I think what I'm thinking about is, being able to gather a lot of feedback from all corners of the internet. You could set up an AI that is looking around at specific channels to see if anybody is saying anything positive, negative, or neutral about their content experience or about their product experience. And you can allocate all of that to come back to a specific database or depot or repo, and then you can look through it. And that AI can also be tagging positive, neutral, negative, and then also counting by product, like positive, negative, neutral, and giving you kind of like a bit of a positive, like what's the score? What's the sentiment score here? And in the past, I don't think very many people would be able to do that. Like if they were doing it, it was very intensive. It was very much like, oh, we're not going to go look at Reddit or we're not going to go look at Discord. We're only going to be looking at the thumbs up, thumbs down on this topic, or looking at the voice of the customer survey and making conclusions there, drawing conclusions there, probably only looking at SEO metrics and trying to decide, is this a good topic or a bad topic based off
Mhm.
of, clicking like click-through rate and whatnot. Um, I think it's also going to help with potentially transforming existing content into an updated content model and template that you have created with your team. Some companies have been around for 50 years and their docs, might not necessarily get all that much love over time because their content team is lean and they're focusing on releases and they're focusing on new features.
Mhm.
And they don't have the time to go back and say, is this doc set or this guide in alignment or adhering to our style guide or adhering to our content standards now? And if they were to go back and try to make it consistent with the new standards, like That would take months, potentially years, depending on how big their doc portfolio was to complete that work. So people are, content teams are testing the waters with prompt chains as well as training, LLMs on their new content models and templates and giving them examples of this is what this content looks like. And, then feeding it to the AI and say, apply this template using this existing content and transform it. It's not going to be a one-to-one 100% accurate situation. There's going to be error there, but that's where the people come into
The
play here.
people. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. It's the experts, and they're going to be able to come in and be like, actually, this is not correct. It seems to be hallucinating here, or that's out of place. We
Off.
need to move
Yeah.
this up. Yeah. And that kind of thing. So, but the positive to that is the cleanup should be much smaller than the overall doing it by hand or paying another vendor to do the transformation for you, which could cost, thousands of dollars. And doc teams aren't known for having the biggest budgets. So I think this helps these doc teams kind of be able to find solutions to things that might have been blocking them due to pricing or blocking them due to lack of engineering and programming background. Now with these LLMs, you can kind of figure out how to train them and work with them and then improve them over time. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Also, I think it doesn't have to be these swing for the fences kind of scenarios. You can, train an LLM on your style guide or to, test your links to make sure you're not producing broken links because nothing ticks a customer off quite like a broken link, like a 404. And so it's like those small things where it's just like, is this in alignment with our standards simply from a style guide perspective or a voice and tone perspective? And
Mm-hmm.
does our content actually work because our links are connecting things and working? So, hyperlink is something that we're using at Cloudflare, and I know my peer, he is working closely with that team at Hyperlink to see if there's any ways to improve it so that we can really, really continue using that more fully with our content checks and reviews. So that's helped us take some things off of the content reviewers plate. And they can focus more on the actual content and making sure it's clear and useful and usable. And not also having to check all the things that a content team used to have to look for, like hundreds of pages of checklists, right?
Yeah.
That's probably an exaggeration, but
Yeah,
a
no,
lot
but
of,
I understand.
yeah. So now it's a little bit less and they can focus more on that quality of the words and the meaning. And is it actually going to lead to a successful outcome for the customer as opposed to all the little tiny things?
Yeah, I agree. It's going to help a lot with saving time, saving money, but I do agree that we still will need the people to be there to review all that work and to make it better. I mean,
Yes,
so
yes.
it will help with lots of things. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you're working on that you would like to share with our audience, or is there anything else that you just want to say, to mention, to let, I don't know, anyone who would like to work in content know anything?
Honestly, I do have another webinar coming up with Document 360. That's going to happen in May. I'm still working out the details for it, but it's probably going to focus on like content maintenance and consistency, the things I like to think about.
Date?
The date I think is May 9th, but I could be wrong, honestly. I don't have the best memory,
My
but
goodness. Let us know, and we'll let everyone know whenever we post this episode.
cool. Well, thank you. And other than that, I'm just continuing to get my feet wet at Cloudflare. I'm new here, so I'm really excited. It's been a great onboarding experience. And then, yeah, if somebody's wanting to get into content, I say give it a shot. Reach out to a bunch of write the docs, or if there's like a group of technical writers in their area that do a meetup, reach out to them and see like what the experience is like, or start just poking around on websites that you really appreciate and try to understand like what channels are they using and how can I replicate this, all that kind of stuff. So I think content's really accessible and content people are really friendly. And if you ask them, hey, how do you do that? They're likely going to respond with an answer and probably nerd out a bit because not too many people are really interested in their work all the time. So yeah.
Well, we surely loved talking to you, and you were super generous with us. So that proved what you just said. Content people are very open and they love to share. So that's the end of today's show with Caley Burton. Please make sure to tune in again to see and or to listen to the next VistaTalks show, where we will be discussing more interesting topics with interesting people from all around the world. Thank you so much, Caley, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.